Today I'd like to talk about the new social networking website called OgilvyBrainz. You can find that by going to www.OgilvyBrainz, spelt with a Z or a Z.com. Once again, www.OgilvyBrainz, all one word, brains spelt not with an S but with a Z/Z.com. What the hell is it? Well, let me explain. First of all, I think we need to be completely honest about this. It doesn't work all the time, but it works some of the time, and when it does work, it works very, very well. What I'm talking about is any form of collective intelligence, what you might call the wisdom of crowds, brainstorming, getting in a diverse group of people to consider new possibilities. Quite a lot of research is done on this. There's some quite interesting research quoted in a book called The Medici Effect. In fact, and what it tends to suggest is that half the time, the process of brainstorming, collective intelligence, the hive mind, call it what you want, half the time it works extraordinarily well. The other half of the time it's rubbish. Some of the time, if you want a creative idea, if you want a good idea, if you want something original, the best thing you can do is get one or two people, maybe three, small number of people, tell them to go away for quite a long time, maybe a week or so, and ask them to come back with some good ideas. What you'll then get is the kind of sequential process of thinking, which gets you from somewhere to somewhere else through a process of what you might call, protracted imagination. It works extraordinarily well, and it's a very successful advertising model that produces an awful lot of great ideas. Most great creative executions, in truth, arise from that kind of process. That's what you might call few people, long time. There's another form of innovation, of ideation, if you like, which is, if you like, at right angles to this process, which is what you might call many people, short time. And this is what OgilvyBrainz is about. It's a problem-solving network. Anybody can join, anybody can log in. There's even a widget on your desktop that will sit there and update you with what the latest problems are. What the idea is that when you have a client brief, or you have a problem, or you have a business challenge to be solved, you can go to OgilvyBrainz.com, post that problem there, and at no cost, from Ogilvy, worldwide, in real time, you'll get solutions and suggestions back, ideally within 24 to 48 hours. Now, there are a few reasons I think this is important. One, as Ogilvy, we're very, very big. We have a greater range of skills, we have a greater range of people, we have a greater range of nationalities, of languages, and a huge range of experience. That, by the way, is absolutely vital to any kind of wisdom of crowds. There's absolutely no point in trying to create the wisdom of crowds if you have a homogeneous group of people who are all the same, who all come from the same discipline, from the same background, and have the same preoccupations. That's what's called banking, and that's one of the reasons you have a massive financial crisis at the moment. It's because bankers fundamentally are not very diverse or variegated people in their thinking, their philosophies, or their approaches. So you get a kind of herd insanity where everybody will rush off in one direction without any kind of dissenting voices. What we have in advertising, particularly in Ogilvy, is, I hope, a fairly variegated and diverse group of people with contrasting opinions, different disciplines, different national backgrounds, different approaches to life, which hopefully should work better as a collective intelligence. One of the things that's absolutely vital to understand is that hive minds, crowdsourcing, all these things don't really work if everybody's the same. Now, what always bothers me about this is we have in Ogilvy this extraordinary diverse blend of talent, and yet most of the time we behave as if we're just 10 people. Now, if you go to a client, you get a client brief, you go and hand it to your planner, the usual planner, he in turn passes it on to your usual creative team in that old boring relay race approach to coming up with ideas. The problem is that there's no real difference between working at Ogilvy and working at an agency of 10 people. What you've done is you've failed to tap into the broader experience and broader knowledge that's on hand. You've also, by the way, failed to tap into the fact that Ogilvy operates in pretty much every time zone worldwide, apart from a few of the more obscure Pacific ones. So that one of the glorious things of the Ogilvy network is if you post a problem at 6 p.m. at night, there'll actually be people thinking about that problem while you're asleep. It occurs to me that when people first get a client problem, first get a brief, they post it here, they must accept the fact that half the time it won't work. Half the time the suggestions back will be very few or indeed very bad. The other half of the time, you will come up with thoughts, suggestions, ideas. Two things: very, very original ideas and suggestions, the kind of thing you wouldn't have thought of yourself, nor would you or your small team have thought of them. The second great advantage is those ideas will come to you very, very quickly. Now, the benefit of the process happening very fast is this. It's not only the fact that things that happen fast don't take much time, and therefore, in a sense, what's to lose? You post a question to Brainz, you can even post by text message, by the way. You post a problem to Brainz, 24 hours later, maybe 48, you've either got something great or you haven't. Well, you haven't wasted a huge amount of time, in truth. The second advantage is that if you do come up with something spectacularly original in the first 48 hours, it is more valuable than coming up with it maybe after 48 hours or after, let's say, 72 hours, simply because your chance of selling in a truly radical idea to any client diminishes very rapidly the longer you've been sitting on the brief. If you go back to someone after a day and say, have you thought about it like this, they're interested. If you go back after 10 days and say, we're starting to think about it differently, it looks like you're stalling for time. So the chances of selling in and actually getting executed truly radical thinking are very much dependent on how fast you do it. So this thing seems to have a few virtues. First of all, it plays to Ogilvy's unique strength, which is breadth and diversity, and indeed geographical spread. It provides you with the chance of doing something spectacularly original, but with a very, very low opportunity cost when it fails. My question about this is I hope you join it, have a look to see what's there now, maybe even solve a problem before you post one. But my final question is, what's not to like? There's one final advantage of OgilvyBrainz, which is that there are a hell of a lot of very, very talented people in the business, the kind of people who can game change by coming up with a new and original idea. What you always find is the time of those people is unbelievably difficult to find time in their diary to speak to them. And the problem of conventional brainstorming is that you have to do it simultaneously. You have to get 6 of the people you really, really want together in one place and simultaneously. Now, as people get busier and busier, the odds of succeeding in that get smaller and smaller. The extraordinary thing about this is it doesn't have to be synchronized. You don't have to have the people in the same place or indeed the same country or the same time. That means that there's a chance your problem will be solved by someone whose diary you couldn't get into for 3 months, but who happens to have 10 minutes free to spend on OgilvyBrainz. And that's one of the extraordinary things I find really exciting about this. There's an interesting web concept called, I think it's called slivers of time, which suggests that people use those little wasted 5 to 10 minutes in their lives to do something useful. In other words, instead of just having a crap or reading a newspaper article or wandering off to get a coffee, you go online just for 5 minutes and do something great. The thing that really excites me here is this is a way to take those 3 or 4 random 5-minute periods in the course of your working week or indeed your non-working week where you're at a loss for what to do or you just feel like a change. And rather than, for example, reading a newspaper article, listening to music, looking at some internet porn, you can actually go solve a problem and add some real value. What's so fascinating about this business is occasionally, in just 5 minutes, you can actually add more value to a client's business than other people can in 3 weeks.